This episode of Bartholomew Town is brought to you by the University of Rhode Island Online, Newport Film, Navigant Credit Union, Half Street Group, and Health Source RI for employers.
Bartholomew Town.
Welcome into Bartholomew Town. I'm Bill Bartholomew. We've certainly spent plenty of time talking about book banning and really book banning adjacent things here on the broadcast and the podcast, depending on where you're listening. You may remember some of the events that we've covered over the years at libraries where groups have shown up advocating for book banning, and there's been protests outside. We've had interactions with Moms for Liberty, which is really a parent organization that has different chapters around the country. They're right on the front lines of trying to ban books, and this has been something that has become very symbolic of the culture wars throughout the country, and specifically in and around education. Now there's a new film that was just released on October 3rd, The Librarians, directed by Kim Snyder. This film follows librarians in Texas, Florida, and other states as they unite to combat book banning in the U.S. Sarah Jessica Parker actually served as the executive producer under her Pretty Matches production banner. Now, this film, for those of you listening in Southern New England, it films, if you're hearing this podcast on release day, October 30th. It screens tonight at the Newport Classical Recital Hall. But for everybody else, as always is the case with these great films we profile, there certainly are other opportunities to check this out. And you have the opportunity to hear from the director right now. That's Kim A. Snyder, who joins us this morning. Kim, thanks so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Quick synopsis of your experience and sort of your background in filmmaking.
Sure. I've been doing it for over 2 decades. And into it very circuitously. I didn't go to film school. I did master's work in international relations and found myself into film. My father was an artist, and film had been a passion since I was a child. So I landed in that in my 20s, and I've been making films, as I said, for over 2 decades. And a lot of the more recent films were in the space of gun violence. And in fact, I have screened a number of fond memories of screening up in Newport, in your neck of the woods, with films called Newtown and Us Kids, both of which premiered, as this did, at the Sundance Film Festival. And that took on the issue of gun violence in America by way of some of the horrific mass shootings, including the one in Connecticut in Sandy Hook. And this film started 4 years ago now in Texas, when I saw a news piece that really caught my eye about something called the Krause list, which is what sort of starts off the trajectory of this particular film, The Librarians, wherein a state senator released a list of 850 books that should be removed from school shelves, and a group of librarians calling themselves the Freedom Fighters, with an READ, got together and started to organize and speak out about this. And that was the beginning of this story. I quickly I was attracted to that story, didn't really know what this would be 4 years later, as we often don't when we start these journeys. And I collaborated with them, started building trust, and here we are.
Here we are with a documentary that profiles, like I said in the open there, this is one of the fault lines in some of the culture wars that dominate our conversation right now. What was it like to kind of step into this story in particular at this moment? Because you can call it a bellwether, you can call it an indicator, but what is sort of this ecosystem of book banning? It really does show a major, major fault line in this country on something that, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people would say, isn't this just about personal choice? Yet these groups like Moms for Liberty, they say, no, this is about, sometimes they go as far as saying this is saving children. What was that environment like to step into for you?
Well, first of all, this is 4 years in the making. So what was true when we began 4 years ago has definitely evolved. 4 years ago, those very librarians said to me, we are the canaries in the coal mine. And I don't think I could quite grasp what they meant by that. But they said, what's happening in school libraries, we're concerned this is going to be happening in public libraries and elsewhere. And at that time, it was sort of their story to tell. And now, 4 years later, as not a spoiler, but as one of our librarians subject says, now it's everyone's story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the story of the 4 years. What was different about the fall of 21 was the scale of it from, as you learn, where you would learn there were no challenges of books in a particular school or district to hundreds and hundreds and a complete overwhelming experience of something they had never experienced. And the other thing that was different was that there had always been, we hear a lot of these words, parental rights. There had always been parental rights. There was always a process. There still is a process by which trained professionals, by way of librarians who often get master's degrees, to learn, if they're school librarians, what is appropriate in particular shelves. That had been in place, and there was a mechanism by which people could say, hey, I have a concern about this book on the 10th grade shelf. And that was dealt with effectively with a committee. What happened in the fall of 21 was a brazen breaking of all protocol we had formerly known to basically take these books without questions asked, almost like fugitives, without due process, in all defiance of First Amendment rights and the freedom to read that they fiercely have taken, have studied and in a way taken oaths to uphold. So I think where we're sitting at now is looking at something that is on a lot of people's lips as a more pervasive attack on freedom of expression that has permeated museums and institutions of higher learning and mainstream entertainment and a lot of aspects of society.
What seems to be what seems to be unfolding now, in fact, what is happening now, is an attack on knowledge. There's no question. And this film and this topic writ large is a great indicator of that because, like you said, you're brushing up against First Amendment and freedom of expression broadly rights. You're also brushing up against the expertise that librarians, whether it's school or outside of school librarians, have in making these determinations. So it really is this intersection of a lot of what I was going to say the divide, but the reality is what is under attack here in this country. What was some of the reaction when you were on the ground? Because I know that you reached out to Moms for Liberty, that organization that has different chapters around the country, including here in Rhode Island, folks. But what was the reaction from those who are for book banning, if you will, or those who are sort of on the side of Moms for Liberty or Moms for Liberty themselves? What sort of pushback or feedback did you get from the pro-book banning community, if there is such a thing?
Well, I think that remains to be seen in some ways. We're just rolling out in theaters, and we're getting more widespread attention to the film. So while we were making the film, other than offering an interview, I think what was interesting, again, not to spoil, but if you see the film, people often right now talk about the polarization, which is very real in this country, and the culture wars. And they talk about, is there a middle? But this film and making it, boy, have we walked the middle. Because one of the characters in the film, who's a moderate Republican, most of our librarians will say there's no place for partisan politics in the school libraries. We're in the kids' business. We, a bunch of them are registered Republicans. This is a First Amendment, fundamentally un-American concept of censorship, no matter where you lay on the political spectrum. And so I think that the character in our film named Courtney Gore from a small place in Texas, she really highlights the idea that her opinion changes because she realizes that in a way she's been duped. And it's not really about the books in the school libraries. It's about something much larger with a different kind of agenda that has to do with public education and separation of church and state. And so I think there's a lot of Courtneys that are, understanding that there's sheer disinformation out there, where people are being led to believe there's pornography in the second grade school libraries, and it's simply untrue. So that's the part that I think the reaction that we're getting now that the film is out from many people, and also a kind of questioning. Look, there's a librarian in our film from small town Louisiana who was a staunch Republican household and a devout Christian. And she was in Europe with me recently, and she said, I was brought up on two major tenets: as a Christian, to love thy neighbor, and as a Republican, to First Amendment rights were really paramount. That's why they're number one in the lineup of amendments. And she said, and I did everything to uphold these values and was attacked for that by the very same town that grew me up. So anyhow, that's some of the reaction we're getting is that this is not a singing to the choir kind of a messaging.
So interesting you mentioned the Republican piece of this, and it is fascinating that for a party that is, or a group, and this also, by the way, there are Democrats that we've spoken with here that are also in favor of book banning and have actually surprised some of their constituents with this type of commentary. But it's interesting that this issue has become the incursion of kind of the Christian nationalism piece, or whatever the control type of piece is there. That's nothing new in history, but it just feels odd that this is something that for pro-First Amendment, laissez-faire type of minds, this isn't one of those carve-outs, it seems, to say, well, if a book like Gender Queer is available in a library for a student that may find that to be an incredibly valuable resource, well, too bad, because this violates some kind of tenet or stature that we want to apply to the world. It just seems like this is an odd friction point that the only thing you can explain is puritanical ideas, control of women, control of LGBTQ folks, whatever the case may be. Book banning at the end of the day to me seems like about people who just can't let go of having control of other people's lives. Do you get the sense that that's a fair statement as you made this film, or is it something bigger than that?
I do. I think that ultimately these semantics, we've seen this in other arenas, but the words parental rights can be flipped, where there's plenty of parents, I would say a majority, who said, you don't get to choose. You can monitor what your kids read. And there is a process, monitor in your own house, go and talk to your librarian. They're usually more than happy to make a note. Little Johnny had his aunt died of cancer. I really would prefer not to have books that bring up death. I mean, all kinds of things that you might be sensitive, and you have the right as a parent to protect your kid.
Bartholomew Town.
Are you ready to take the next step in your career? URI Online offers business and leadership-focused programs designed to fit your life. Whether your goal is to advance in your career in fields like public administration, supply chain management, or training and development, their online programs provide the flexibility you need with the high-quality education you deserve. Learn more from experienced faculty and collaborate with a network of professionals, all from the comfort of your home or wherever life takes you. Visit uri.edu/online to explore programs and start building your future today. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,200 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our more than 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health and dental insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.
We're brought to you in part by Newport Film. Make sure you check out their indoor film screening series by visiting newportfilm.com. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com.
But you don't have the right to tell the rest of the district what those kids can have access to. No one's making them check the book out. This is about having representation and choice, and they are trained to provide libraries that represent diversity and they're not disproportionate. They're also, so the parental rights thing, and you had brought up the idea of saving children. Same thing, you can flip it. We have people who say, we believe we are saving certain kids, marginalized, vulnerable kids that feel alone. And these books that they haven't necessarily had 30, 40 years ago, tell them that they're not alone. So they believe they are saving children because they cite examples, and they will say, when you say we're taking books that have any gay characters off the shelf, you're telling them that they are also not wanted. So that's another version of saving kids, and they are fiercely protective of that as well. But I do think it has to do with a larger agenda of white Christian nationalism and of a control. But there's another side, which is the control of information.
Yep.
And it's interesting about you saying are there books that should be banned. I got home at late last night from Europe. I screened at the German National Library. Fascinating. That library reached out to me the day after our Library of Congress was fired, saying, please come and show this, because we have hundreds of German librarians standing in solidarity with your librarians, where we understand all too well what this can foretell.
That's right.
And we had a fascinating conversation because I was told by our librarians, Mein Kampf is forbidden in Germany. And we had a conversation about that because our librarian said it really should, it's source material. Things like that need to be available, perhaps. Those are more on the side of, do we take books off the shelf because we feel they're racist now and they have no place? Those are important conversations to have. But that's a different, that flavor of those kinds of books like Huck Finn that you say on the left, really, they're more challenges than outright banning, and have nothing compared to the scale of what's being taken off the shelves that have to do with the erasure of Black history, people of color, anything to do with gender and the LGBTQ, or anything to do with sex education. Even books that have to do with activism, which is interesting, are being in some ways verboten.
It's an incredible fault line, and it's an incredible opportunity that you've had to document this. The Librarians, it is screening. For the thousands of you who are hearing this on release day on Thursday, oftentimes we give you the preview a little bit before the actual screening. This is tonight, October 30th in Newport. Many of you will hear this after, either on the podcast or on the radio. Where can people look to find this film, and where do you have any other screenings happening scheduled in the Northeast, let's say?
Yes, thank you. We are really pleasantly shocked. We opened at the Film Forum in New York City. That's hard for a small independent documentary. We are now in over 120 cities in small art house theaters, and you can learn where to find those theaters at thelibrariansfilm.com. You can request a screening if there isn't a screening in a theater at a library or a campus. We are going to be airing in February of 26 on PBS's Independent Lens, And we are also on the BBC and playing, across the globe. So it's an exciting thing for a small David and Goliath little documentary, but it's striking a nerve, and we hope that people can see it in Newport. I know that we just we're going to be screening in Boston at the Coolidge. So there's all kinds of places that we've been booking throughout New England.
I've linked the screening. If you're hearing this on Thursday, the 30th of October, I've linked the details of tonight's Newport screening as well as details about the film for anybody who's interested, and you ought to see it. Oh, please. And
shout out to the Newport Film Festival, which is an old friend of the court, and just love everything they do. So I'm excited that it will be showing there.
Yeah, they're the best, and we're super happy to be partnered up with them as well. You can visit newportfilm.com for all details on the amazing Newport film. Kim A. Snyder, thanks so much for making the time today to talk about the Librarians, and thanks for putting yourself out there on an issue that I think a lot of people see as super important and confusing at times, and also one that is, boy, you want to talk about ground zero of a major shift that's happening in this country, and honestly, on a global basis. Just take a look at Brazil, take a look at some places where this is being mirrored around the globe. Amazing job. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. I can promise you'll learn a lot, and you might even be entertained.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,200 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our more than 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health and dental insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.